Welcome back to Warthog and welcome to the tank review on the mKPz M47, which is the German Tier 5 premium tank with a battle rating of 7.3. And this is a rather interesting tank, to put it very politely. Now that does not mean that it's good or bad, because what I want to say is it's really interesting, and I changed my opinion on this tank on multiple occasions. I played more and more battles than I usually do, and well, there are many aspects that you have to take into account before you can actually begin to talk about the tank itself. And well, I think this is an up and down of opinions, of stats, of games, of experiences. Also, I have to really blend out the experiences that I remembered from the American counterpart, which also sits at 7.3, which has arguably one of the worst stock grinds in the game. But this is a premium tank, so everything is unlocked. How does it play, how good it is, the full rundown on the statistics, comparison to its major opponents on the battlefield, how to take it out, how to make the most out of the tank. This should be part of this tank review, and I will show you obviously ace gameplay in the background and all the good things that are you used to with my tank reviews. So, but before we begin with the usual rundown of the statistics, it's the battle rating. The battle rating is a real problem. Let's have a quick look in the tech tree, and we can see if you blend out this E100, which is a reward vehicle, there is no 7.3 tank. The Jagdpanzer 45 used to have this battle rating of 7.3. It now got switched, not just in place, but also battle rating in the tech tree. And you are now a problematic tank like the Type 61 used to be before it also went down to 7.0. And yeah, a bit like the Hori prototype, you have no battle rating equivalent in your nation. So that means two things. Either you are a big problem for your 7.0 tanks because you drag them more than often into higher tier games, where especially the 10.5 centimeter Tiger 2 and the Jagdtiger really struggle. They are not performing as good as they used to with the battle rating revamps and the power creep in the last few patches, and so you really have to take this into account. However, the M47 is a really good transition tank from the Tiger 2H to the Leopard. It sits more or less in between, or if you take something like the Panthers, the Panther 1s, not the Panther 2, that's a special breed, I have to say. Also not the 10.5 centimeter Tiger 2. A mixture, a theoretical tank made out of the stats of the Tiger 2 and the Panthers, and in comparison the Leopard 1. And you mix that up, you have somewhat the playstyle and the capabilities of the mKPz M47. If that's a good thing or a bad thing is up to you. I'd say the most or the biggest problem I have with this tank is its battle rating, and that you have nothing left. However, to make a quick sentence about the income, it's really decent, I have to say. I made always a really nice profit with this tank, and also the RP gain was nothing to be ashamed of. So it's really weird. It's somewhat a known stranger. It's coming from death metal with the World War II tank designs of the Germans to an opera, to a fine filigrane symphony that is the Leopard, which doesn't really perform that good in certain situations but has other strengths. And so the mKPz is right in between. It's really not that easy to describe this tank. At first I disliked it, then I liked it, then I had a few bad battles, and it went up and down, forwards and backwards. It's really not that easy, so I hope you stay with me to really present you this tank as it deserves it. So, the armor. The upper frontal plate is a bit tricky, 102mm thick of cast homogeneous armor, and it's angled at 59 degrees in the most parts, here even exceeding 60 degrees, but then the weakness is here this machine gun port, and here in the middle, for some bizarre reason, you now go for some pixels down to 44 degrees. That's weird. It creates random bounces, makes you AAA safe most of the time, and that's about it. The lower plate is just 76mm, and from the outside to the inside it gets more angled. However, it again does not really save you. Then there's also this area here which is heavily angled, but just 25 and 22mm thick. This is really annoying as it opens you up even to 40mm Bofors armor piercing shells, you know, the 40mm ones. Yes, really, you're not AAA safe. I mean, they will not kill you and shred you like some other AAA or something like this, but if they hold in this area around the turret ring, despite the overlap by the way, your gunner gets knocked out, your loader gets knocked out, it takes you an awful amount of time until you kill them. Then the side of the tank, front is 76.2, that is not terribly bad. Remember, all the Russian medium tanks at around about this battle rating have 80mm, but the rear is just 50.8. So this is weaker, where even AAA from a flat angle can penetrate you and set the engine on fire, because this is the engine compartment. The very rear is also 50.8 and the bottom just 22. The engine deck is 22 going all around. That's weak. That's rather weak. The turret roof is 25.4, still not very strong. And then we come to the turret itself. And again, we have here 101.6, and we go from flat parts or not enough angled parts, especially here. This is a hit zone where APHE still penetrates around about this area still. Here the turret ring is flat and not very, it doesn't save you. But then there is this 114.3mm gun mantle. That's a bit thicker, a bit more angled, and we have a overlap with this. And that can create some random, very strange bounces from time to time. But then when we go to the outside, it's just 63.5. So if you shoot around about this area, or this area, so the cheek so to speak, you penetrate it and do massive damage. And yeah, even the cupola is just 76.2mm thick. This tank does not really excel with armor, let's put it that way. By the way, the rangefinders are also counting to the hitbox, so if you get penetrated here, the shells will shrapnel or ricochet inward and explode there. So yeah, good luck with the surviving Russian APHE shells. Then we come to the X-ray, and we have 5 crew members. That's good, that's actually beneficial for your survivability, with the machine gunner and the driver in the front and the loader on the right side, but the gunner and the commander on the left side, so keep that in mind. We also see the big engine compartment with the transmission in the rear, and then a lot of ammunition, 70 rounds. However, you just have to remove 10 rounds to empty those 3 ammo racks, which severely increases your survivability. But if you want to one-shot this tank with a solid shot, aim down low, because the next ammo rack will be those 30 rounds, and then the last ammo rack which remains is this one. So lower plate shots are deadly, and also aiming just under the front of the turret and very down low, just above the road wheels, will one-shot this tank for sure. But then again, you know, it's if you just get penetrated in a turret, you can survive even APHE shells. You are down to 2 crew members, but then again, it's better than that, right? Yeah, so the tank is actually not that bad. It further convinces with other stats, so let's have a look at them. Like for instance, the mobility. And we can see we have a pretty strong engine with 810 horsepower for a relatively heavy 44.1 tons for a medium tank. Specific horsepower to ton ratio is 18.4, and that is interesting because it's even worse than the Panther II, but it's better than, for example, a Type 61. And it also leaves tanks like the T-54-47 and also the Vickers MBT in the dust, quite literally. So over those tanks, which have either much better guns or much better armor, you have a mobility advantage, but you cannot really reach, you know, light tanks such as the Object Nano 6. Also, I have to add that this tank has no stabilizer, so that's a rather big drawback. The top speed with 47 kilometers an hour is okayish, but if it would have a better transmission, so to speak, it could well exceed this speed, especially downhills. It could do more. So unlike tanks like the RE251 or the Leopard 1, which really feel like they have massive amounts of drag, the KPz M47 or the mKPz M47 at speeds above 2025 can actually get to speed faster than you would anticipate for the horsepower to ton ratio, but at low speeds it's just a little bit too sluggish. This tank, furthermore, like all the other tanks, features neutral steering with the exception of the T-54-1947, but it's not that fast as you might expect, so the tank really feels a bit long, so a little bit problems with traversing, but it's not drastic. I just would wish it to be a slightly bit faster. So the mobility is okayish, and again not as fast as Leopard, RE251, Panther II, but certainly faster like a lot of the late war German tank designs or even the Panthers. Then let's go to the actual selling point, which is the business end, which is the gun. So gun-wise, we have here an American 90mm M36 gun, and that can house up to 70 rounds of ammunition. That is a lot. That is twice as much as the T-54-1947. And you even still beat the Leopard 1 by 10 shells. But then again, you remove 10 shells and you are most likely safe from turret ammo rack explosions. So you have a lot of ammunition to carry around. All you would need realistically is around about 30 for all conditions, but then again, as we will see later on, you have a really huge variety of ammunition. But I will condense it down this time a bit, because those are even too much shells for me to compare. Then there is the reload. 7.5 seconds is, it's not bad. It's really not bad, but then again, the Vickers MBT has 5 seconds for a 105, the Object Nano 6 has 6 seconds for an 85, and this one has 7.5 for a 90mm. So it just could be a ditch faster. For example, like the Leopard 7.1 for an ace crew for its L7A3 gun. But then again, you beat your major opponent on the battlefield, the T-54-1947, by over a second, 1.1 to be exact, which is 14.7% quicker reload. So that's quite something. So you are kind of average in this respect. What's really outstanding is the turret rotation speed, especially when we compare it to the RE251. So usually for a light tank, you're in the mindset of having very fast turret traverse. But that's not true for the RE251 and also for the Object Nano 6, which have 33.3 and 44.4 longer or slower turret rotation speed. 36 seconds is a hell of a turret rotation speed. That's really good. And then we come from the good to the ugly. Gun depression. 5 degrees is really not enjoyable. That's like the same as on the Object Nano 6, but much like on the Object Nano 6, I really do not think it's that much of a drawback. If it would be 9 or even 10 degrees, for example, on the Type 61, which has for all intents and purposes the same gun, it would be really so much better. but it's not really disturbingly bad, especially with the playstyle. The gun elevation with 19 degrees is okay. Elevation speed is bad though, but then again 4 degrees is what like 90% of the tanks in War Thunder have. But Leopard 1 with 6 degrees and Object 906 with 4.5 degrees per second elevation speed are noticeably better, so keep that in mind. So it's all a little bit average, with a few good stats, a few bad stats, but nothing really neck-breakingly bad, I'd say. Where this tank really shines is the variety of ammunition. We have 7 different shells on this tank, of which I'd say 3 are rather useless. One of them is special to mention, the M332A one-shot, for being the best penetrating APCR shell in the game currently, as far as I can tell. Don't use it, it's not that good. It's APCR, so the damage effect is not the best, and it is really horrifyingly bad against sloped armor. Don't use it. So of the 7 shell types, I will present you 2 shells which you have to rely on to deal the damage. The first of those 2 shells is the all well-known M82 shot, and well, there is not too much to mention. It's for side shots. It's for side shots or very lightly armored targets. You have 137.2 grams of TNT filling with a muzzle velocity of 853 meters per second. It's not the fastest, so in comparison to the muzzle velocity of the long 88, you're missing around about 150 meters. At long distances, it also doesn't keep a convincing amount of penetration. We begin with 170 millimeters and fall down to 127 at 2000 meters. Really for side shots. And that's all there is to say, because the actual selling point of this tank, which makes it even worth considering to purchase, is the HeatFS shell. The M431 HeatFS shell is really what makes this tank work. So this should be your primary shell, with the M82 being your backup shell for side shots if you have disabled an enemy. We have a great muzzle velocity of 1260 meters per second, so it's even easier to aim at range, and we have 320 millimeters of penetration, and that is just a little bit less than the APCR that I showed you in the beginning, but you retain it at every distance, and you have very good normalization stats of 0, so to speak, so line of sight penetration. Even at 30 degrees of angling, you can penetrate up to 159 millimeters of armor. The damage effect is very linear. You should be used to it if you have played a lot of the American high tier tanks or Leopard, for instance, so you should know what the drawbacks of HeatFS shells are. So you cannot really fire through thick bushes, trees, fences. Then again, against fences, you have a 50 caliber mounted on the top of the tank, which you also can use to defend yourself against aircraft. And it all would be really nice if I wouldn't have had so much bad luck with this shell on certain occasions, which you might see in the background. Overall, this shell is your primary shell at that battle rating in particular, and it also induces hull break for AAA vehicles or lightly armored vehicles, much more than the full caliber M82 APHE shot. So you have to really switch between the shells depending on the situation. And with 760 silver lines, it costs you a little bit, I have to agree, but it's not as ridiculous as, for example, the HeatFS on the Leopard or other high tier tanks with their AP-FSDS shells, for instance. So those are the shells, and here we can see a comparison stat card. I promise this is the last stat card that you will see today, and we can see APHE. In terms of APHE shells, it has the lowest mass velocity and the lowest penetration. The HE filling is okayish. The HE shell is useless. Then the APCR shell is not as good as the APDS shell, for instance, on the Leopard 1, but then again it's also still unreliable. The HeatFS shell is okay-ish, I'd say. And what really is good about this tank, that it also features another smoke shell and smoke launchers, so you can hide yourself out of tricky situations if you have enough time. So use the smoke launchers to give you nearly instant smoke screen, then empty your barrel, reload a smoke shell, and continue fire them up until you have retreated out of your danger zone. So that's the theory. So, and then that's it with the stats. Let's get into some action. Here we are on Normandy, and I'm driving very, very aggressively. And yeah, I'm waiting for an ambush position, and I'm listening. Listening to surrounding is as important as observing it. And this battle is not very representative, but then again, it just will show you how ridiculous this tank can be from time to time. So, the heat shell loaded, and I just glance around the corner and I just see this M48. So the successor in the American tech tree. I just take out the commander and the loader, so that's not good enough. And there is another tank, it's a British, I don't want to risk it. And yeah, behind me are some German medium tanks, that's good, so they secure my back, and I have pinned those tanks down. I'm observing, and then something really nice happens. I discover a glitch. If you look through this window, you can see the ocean. So that's nice to know. And then somebody drops smoke, and I just took a pot shot at the last known position, but it was not quite to be. And what I'm doing here is a ridiculously stupid, dangerous game. I'm playing with the smoke, and I actually take out the M48 with a shot through the upper frontal plate. So that ATGM told me one thing: this is a Stridswagen 81. Yeah, dangerous tank, stabilizer at much lower battle rating, and 3 rockets which he just fired. I track him, and I use the dead rack of the other British tank to, well, be safe to a certain degree. And with the 50 caliber machine gun, I again spot. And that was a bit wrong, but I get at least the kill assist. So we breached through that. And now again, I'm very, very aggressive. This is stupidly aggressive. There is a second smoke screen. I look on the radar, and I want now to do one thing. I want to clear up the enemies from behind. So again, I look around the corner. If there is somebody, no, there is none. I don't care about the capture zone. I want to go through, in direction of the beach, because then you can actually shoot at a lot of tanks from a direction that they might not expect. So I am behind enemy lines, and I don't expect somebody from the left side looking backwards into his spawn, so I have to look to the right, so to predict or to see if somebody's coming, and to either go for an ambush shot or to directly attack him if it is a AAA. And then I see this tank, but remember, I have heat vest loaded, and this barbed wire here in front of me forces me to, well, drive an extra few meters to attack him. And then I reload an APHE shells after I notice that I have crippled his gun breech, which I always do for such tanks, and I'm taking him out with one shot. That was a bit of a, well, bad ping, I'd say. And I look again behind me if there's somebody. No, there is nobody, so let's further advance. In the middle, there is one epic player in a mouse, and he's currently repairing. This is what a mouse is doing, either eating cheese or repairing. So I help him a little bit, take out, or intend to take out this IS-2, but instead get just a kill assist on him. I'm okay with that. So even Russian tanks, you're not guaranteed to one-shot them with a shot in the turret. Either you go for the crew or for the gun breach. The gun breach most of the time absorbs it. I saw a tortoise here at the end of the street, but it just went around the corner, and I was not quite sure what to do. This is still a very good ambush position. This IS-3 is dead, I noticed this, and I see this guy actually reversing. I make sure that this shot goes in, and I want to pin him down by shooting in the engine, setting him on fire, switching to the APHE, and trying to go for the back of the crew compartment. And yeah, that shot was not ideal. It just ricocheted a few centimeters before it hit the flat side. Doesn't matter, aiming a bit higher, and there you can see the fantastic splash effect of an APHE shell. This tortoise with just AP heat FS would have taken a few shots to set on fire 3 times, or going for the crew piece by piece, so to speak. Not very enjoyable. And so we can see that now we are dominating the field. Another thought process is to support your heavy units, to stay behind a yak tiger that attracts the shot, can soak up the damage, which German heavy tanks or heavy tank destroyers are well known for. Ferdinand, Yak Tiger, hell, even the Yak Panther to a certain degree. I hear a tank below, I cannot depress the gun, 5 degrees of gun depression, bad thing. Now I want to go around, and I suspect that there are certain tanks left on the beach. I do not really want to participate in the spawn pushing, as it is called nowadays, and well, again, there is an opportunity. You take what's on the road, you call it roadkill. Okay, that one was really bad, but let's move on. I heard and then also saw a Sherman tank, and this is why I reload an APHE. Against a Sherman, the APHE does the job, especially from the side. First of all, I set him on fire and immobilize him with a shot in the engine, aim for the crew compartment, and that's another kill. Good, really, really good. But there was another tank. I didn't notice it at that time, but I was right with my thought that there could be more tanks on the beach, because according to the minimap, not a lot of tanks had been on the beach before that. So still there could be somebody waiting around the corner. I look, and oh look who's there, a T-44. And I aim, I shoot with the APHE, side of the turret, gun breach is down, but it's not quite good enough, and the Panther 2 gives me another assist. This is my 3rd assist, I guess. Yeah, that's quite something. Now, to make it short, that's actually the battle so far. The last enemy player is in an aircraft, and we'll try to furiously shoot him down with the machine guns, with AAAs, with heat FS. Yes, a little bit of heat a day keeps the planes away, Okay, I stop it, I promise. And then look at this. Just as I am about to make the kill, the mouse shoots him down. And that mouse player really deserved it, because he went in, he took the damage, he angled his turret, and he allowed us to get easy side shots on the enemy. And I was really the support part here with, then dishing out the damage, killing the enemy's gun breaches and so on. And that is really, really important, and you must not underestimate it. That's really a key message that I give you with Heat FS. If you cannot kill the tank in one shot, then disable the gun breach, and there is not much that this guy can do. He has to hold still in order to repair, and there you can see the income. Over 73,000 silver lions and over 7,300 research points. So you can see I played this tank quite a bit, and this is one of the few survivor medals that I got in this tank. This was an exceptional battle, and this was also the team really was on point, and I liked this team, and I want to see that more in the future. So the ultimative answer is Should you buy this tank? Well, currently it's the only tier 5 premium tank for Germany, so if you want to go for the Kampfpanzer 70, you have to have a tank with either a talisman or this premium. So it's a good transition tank, that's for sure, and you have to get used to it. It's not very nice to play in the beginning, but then again, it's a transition tank that uses very good things and not so good things from both worlds. So the old Second World War designs and with APHE and a bit of armor, let's put it that way, and survivability with 5 crew members. And then sadly no stabilizer, not an extremely quick reload, but still the mixture of APHE and heat defense. And while both shells do not really bring extreme values to the table or to the stat card, so to speak, it works. The switching around and using the right shell type at a time is really working out on this tank. So that's it from me today with this tank review. I hope you enjoyed it. Please give it a like if you did, subscribe if you want to see more, and we'll see each other on the battlefields of War Thunder.